Okay, well, thanks everyone for sticking around after lunch, and this is going to be a great panel discussion. I think it's very important topic, which is keeping up with a growing state. DFW was the fastest growing metropolis in 2023, breaking 8 million people. In 23 to 24, it did drop to number 3. But a population is closing in on 8.5 million. And just this year, Kaufman County, which is to the east of Dallas County, grew by 6%, making it the number 2 fastest growing county in the country. And we are very lucky to have this panel of transit agency leaders here with us today. And 2 quotes come to mind when I think about these 3 individuals. First, it's never too late to be what you might have been, because as you'll see from their bios, they've grown into their roles being leaders in the transit agency. And I don't know who came up with that quote, but it's on my refrigerator. And the second is by my favorite, Lincoln. If we never try, we never succeed. And these 3 leaders try hard every single day for us, and they have become great successes. So first I'll introduce Dee. On the theme here from my refrigerator, Dee started with a bachelor's in history and political science and then moved into public administration. But she has really grown into a nationally recognized transit leader with over 20 years of experience in planning, development, and operation of public transportation projects across the country. And as DART's Executive Vice President, Chief Development Officer, she really is leading a tremendous amount of work, which includes capital planning, service planning and scheduling, engineering and technical services, real estate and economic development, capital design and construction, and development program support. She's also currently serving as the project executive for the Silver Line, which is a 26-mile-long commuter rail system connecting Dallas to Fort Worth International Airport. And she's also leading the agency's multimodal system modernization program. So please welcome Dee Leggett.
Thank you. My best job is being a mom to that little 7-year-old sitting over at that table. He's playing hooky from school today. But thank you guys. It's great to be in a room full of people who recognize the importance of investing in transportation. If you've paid attention over the last 6 months, not everybody in North Texas see the value of investing in transit. So I appreciate the support. But I'm going to talk a little bit about DART's efforts currently underway to transform our future as we look back over the last 40 years. The Silver Line will be our last big expansion project that completes the commitments laid out in the 1983 service plan. And so now we're going to focus on how do we optimize the investments that we spent the last 40 years building to make sure we're maximizing those in the future. So let's look back at what 1983 was like. Big hair, big hats, still kind of the Texas style. But Dallas was the #1 TV show. Cowboys went 12-4. Wouldn't we love to have that kind of season again? And also, Dallas area rapid transit was formed by the voters. This lays out the initial commitment of the original rail system plan. And this is what we've delivered today. So with the completion of the Silver Line, if you look back at the miles of track committed to in the 1983 election, and you look at the miles of track being delivered with the completion of the Silver Line, we are 98% complete in terms of what we said we would do in 1983 and what we're delivering when we open the Silver Line, hopefully in the fall of 2025. Today, we've got light rail, we've got commuter rail, we've got various levels of bus service. We operate the streetcar on behalf of the city of Dallas, and we also operate the nation's largest microtransit zone, GoLink. We're a $1.8 billion regional transit system with those various levels of service that you saw on the map. And in the last 4 decades, back when Dallas was the #1 TV show and the Cowboys were actually a decent team, we've built 130 miles of rail. We've got the 26 on the Silver Line that's still in final stages of being delivered. And in 2 weeks, we will actually tie the last section of track on that project. We've built over $5.6 billion in capital programs. We got another $4.5 billion in capital investments programmed for the next 5 years in our capital improvement program. We operate the largest microtransit system. We've installed nearly 7,000 bus stops across a 700 square mile service area, and we've catalyzed over $17 billion in economic development around our rail stations. So not sure why people are questioning our value. But most importantly, we've connected millions to jobs, to healthcare, to entertainment, and more. DART today, we are recovering in terms of ridership and reputation. We saw the largest increase in our Net Promoter Score since 2016. People see that we're investing in cleanliness, security, and improvements on our system, but we can't ignore the growing tension that we're seeing in our region about local and regional priorities and how we're going to pay for those local and regional priorities. This is what our ridership looks like. Yes, we're still recovering post-pandemic, but we're about 80% there, trending higher than most other transit agencies and peer systems. Recognizing that we've got to address some of the tensions that we're experiencing within our service area, we adopted a new strategic plan, starting to reimagine what DART is going to be post-expansion and focusing on optimizing the services that we built. We want to be your first in mind mobility partner. That recognizes, that partnership word recognizes that maybe we're not all the time going to be the one always executing the work, but we're going to be partnering in how we solve the mobility challenges. And in doing so, we want to create a best-in-class mobility experience that helps people and communities connect and flourish. Again, if you think about the words there, again, DART's not saying we've got to be everything. We've got to be the deliverer of everything, but we recognize our role not only in carrying people, but in connecting communities and helping those communities grow. To achieve this, we're focusing on 6 strategic goals. Those goals look internally at the organization, creating an empowered agency with a culture of contribution. It's looking towards our riders and making sure we're providing quality service through seamless connections. And then it's also looking at our impact to those communities by making sure we're creating fantastic spaces by leveraging DART's real estate assets, and that we're leveraging strategic partnerships, many of you in the room, and helping deliver those mobility and economic solutions. Let's talk a little bit more about the value that DART provides. And Trinity Metro and DCTA can have similar numbers in their region, in their areas as well. Yes, we provide mobility, but there's ancillary impacts to the investment in rail and transit infrastructure. We provide jobs. We provide competitive wages. We contribute over $1 billion to the gross domestic product. The majority of that is directly into our service area cities. 1.7 million jobs, 1.3 million workforce age employees are within a quarter mile of DART's services. Talked a little bit about that $17 billion economic impact around our stations. This study by the University of North Texas dives a little bit further into that. 31 projects, 31 transit-oriented development projects are occurring around DART Station today. Direct construction jobs, 6,200 direct construction jobs, total employment, 10,747 jobs. Property value increase around our stations, that's value, that's revenue that goes directly to our 13 service area cities, nearly $1 billion. This is how the $17.1 billion breaks out across the various study years. Let's talk a little bit about the Silver Line. I've been here before talking to this group about the project. I know Trey Walker, my Vice President of Design and Construction, has also talked about the project. We have made significant progress since I think I was here talking to this group in 2022. I think somebody in the audience that time asked me when we would open, and I think I tap danced around the answer. I'm going to tell you, we're going to open in 2025. It might be October, it might be November, but we are going to open. We're tying the last bit of rail this month. We're finalizing system integration over the next couple of months. And then we're working very closely with our FRA partners to finalize any regulatory approvals. We got to get past the state fair, but we're looking forward to that opening. 26 miles connects with DART's light rail system, ultimately going to connect in with Paul's DCTA system when he extends down to downtown Carrollton, connect with Rich at DFW Airport and the DFW North Station. The Silver Line is the last big expansion project. It's been a commitment for many of our suburban cities of this east-west connection into DFW Airport. We have a equipment maintenance facility that we're building in Shiloh where we'll maintain the Stadler cars. And then we have the 10 stations across the alignment. What does our future trajectory look like? I talked a little bit about those 6 strategic goals, so I'm going to dive a little bit further into those and what that looks like in terms of actionable items. This is a generational opportunity for us to figure out how to look at and serve mobility differently than we're doing today. It's a generational opportunity for us to reimagine how we operate and maintain our system. The system modernization program that we're about to embark on is that opportunity. We have a significant challenge ahead of us as we address these jurisdictional issues with some of our service area cities. But we recognize that this is an opportunity to create some seamless connections by having conversations with our service area cities that looks at mobility over mode. How can we partner in sidewalks and street improvements and traffic signal prioritization that helps complete the total customer journey? We don't control the streets, the cities do, so there's an opportunity to improve mobility for all. How do we look at reliability over expansion? How do I make sure that I'm building a system that's more reliable? Making sure we're also focusing on outcomes rather than ridership. Making sure that we're really pursuing the outcomes that we want in terms of how we design systems and how we design spaces. Focusing on the quality of service, both through the investments in technology and how we figure out and program the operations and maintenance of those systems, and then looking at creating fantastic spaces by leveraging DART real estate assets. System modernization program is the key to kind of refocusing this generational journey. This is what gives us this opportunity to reimagine ourselves. It's not often that an agency is tasked with the challenge of replacing the majority of its light rail vehicles and buses and optimizing and upgrading its signaling system all at the same time. It's a significant effort. It's a $2.5 billion program, but it creates an opportunity for us to think about things differently. And as we think about these things, we want to think about it not in terms of just the cost of the upfront capital project, but the total cost of operation as we think about investing in these 30 and 40-year assets. How do we make sure that we're making the right decision today to get us to the end of the asset 40 years from now? We're looking at buying the right vehicles. We're looking at unifying our signaling system across all 4 lines on the light rail system. As we're doing this, we want to make sure that what we're baking into these systems and into the design of the vehicle is resiliency to withstand extreme weather conditions, withstand and recover from disturbances. We're also reimagining our station and passenger amenities to address rider needs and address the needs of the new generation of workforce. Corridor optimization, rider experience. This is what I would say is our BRT-like opportunity. We're maybe not necessarily focused right now on implementing BRT corridors, but we're focused on implementing BRT treatments in high priority corridors to improve reliability and performance. Great opportunity here to partner with our cities on improving the total customer journey and mobility for all. Transit-oriented development, another great opportunity for our cities. We've currently got major projects underway in Carrollton, Dallas, Addison, Garland, and Richardson. We're also partnering with our cities on looking at how DART can be more of an investor in these opportunities through using incremental sales tax and tax increment reinvestment zones. We also recognize that the needs in Plano are different from the needs in Irving and are different from the needs in Dallas. So as part of our long-range planning effort, we're creating, in partnership with AECOM, city area plans that look at what are your mobility needs, what are your economic development needs, as we think back to the strategic relationship, the fantastic spaces, the seamless connections of our strategic plan. We want those to start coming out of these city area plans so we can define what are a shared set of principles, a shared set of language that we can use when talking with our cities about their needs, and then we can program those into our budget process or into grant applications to be competitive. And with that, I will turn it back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dee. Some great stuff planned ahead, and you could see why she was named one of the top 40 under 40 by Mass Transit Magazine. So, sticking with this theme of you can grow into being whatever you want to be and be the best at it, I next up am proud to introduce Rich Andreski, who started as a biology major and eventually moved into planning and public policy. He then started doing bus planning in New Jersey Transit and rose to lead public transit at Connecticut DOT, and he now serves as the president and CEO of Trinity Metro. Now, Rich leads a team of talented transit professionals to connect people to life, which is what Mobility Solutions is all about, throughout Fort Worth, the 12th largest and fastest growing city in the nation. Rich focuses on delivering exceptional passenger rail and mobility services, notably the innovative and very successful TexRail program. And he's building important partnerships to advance the region's mobility, economic development, and quality of life goals. Rich and his Trinity Metro team are now laying the groundwork for an expanded urban rail and transit system in the greater Fort Worth area. So let's welcome Rich.
All right, so good to be with you today, and so good to see so many friendly faces in the audience. So yeah, I've been on the ground here in the greater Fort Worth area for about 3 years, and there's two parts to our conversation this afternoon, really. One is to just inform you about what's going on, but more importantly, to leave you with a sense of optimism. It's hard not to be distracted by the day-to-day headlines of what may or may not be happening with transit and rail funding. But I will tell you, there in this market here in North Texas, I think could be a case study for the rest of the country in terms of how to put together great rail investments and really have rail be a leader in terms of what the public is looking for in terms of public investment in transportation. So I'm going to walk you through just a couple of highlights. You're in the middle of the Metroplex. How many in the room are from the Metroplex? Okay, so about half, a little more than half the room. So for those of you that are not in the room, we are the fourth largest metro region in the country. We lag Chicago. Chicago's around 9.26 million. We are somewhere around 8.4 and growing, and we're growing very quickly. So in the next 5 to 7 years, we should be moving into that top 4 slot as a region in terms of population. The Fort Worth story is not all that different, although Fort Worth is really, for a long time, was not growing nearly as quickly as the Dallas side of the region. And in the last couple of decades, we've gone from a population of about 385,000 in 1980 to now just crossing the million mark. And there's no sign of that slowing at the moment. We have lots of greenfield opportunities that yet to be developed. And we're adding 25 to 30,000 people a year just in our part of the region. Now, this map, just one other thought here, you'll see that although we're one metroplex, we're really 3 distinct transit systems. And although we're proud to work with each other, we do have our own service areas. I'm going to focus on rail today, but I just want you to know, as a growing city and a city of 1 million, we're moving into the top 10 slot probably in the next 5 years, nudging out both Jacksonville and Austin. So it's interesting, when you land at DFW Airport, I'm not sure how many of you heard the flight crews say, welcome to Dallas or welcome to Dallas-Fort Worth. Since I moved here, that's something I always look for, and for whatever reason, as a Fort Worth person, I'm always very disappointed when they don't mention Fort Worth. It doesn't take long to feel like you're part of the community here. System ridership has rebounded strongly. It's rebounded across all modes, but somewhat unevenly. And you'll see those are pretty radical shifts in transportation patterns, right? So a bus is nearly recovered, but still down about 9% from pre-COVID highs. Whereas you'll see our TRE line into Dallas, driven largely by the commutation ridership, is down still 30%. But TexRail up 91%. And of course, part of that is it's a growing rail line, a new rail line just before COVID. You know, we've done our own economic studies. One thing that resonates here in North Texas, in many parts of the country, is the return on investment. So we've done our own deep dive on that. And for a humble transit system relative to DART, we're pretty proud of the fact that we generate 2 Super Bowls worth of impact every year. Understanding the market, we wanted to understand how the voters are feeling, how are residents feeling, how are the non-users of transit feeling. And the top line number there shocked me. So I started my career in New Jersey, where we had most people knew and experienced New Jersey Transit. I thought if we had 1 in 10 people riding transit sometime during the year, I thought that would be a great number. It turns out it's 1 in 3. So this idea that folks love their cars and trucks is true, but they also, when it makes sense, are taking trains. And so that's an eye-opener for us. I mean, again, I'm not sure that was something you might have all thought, but it was certainly a surprise when I saw that. And they're using it not for commutation. Here in our part of the region, they are using it for other reasons. They're using it to get to the airport. They're using it for entertainment. And there's also another reason, and it's a top 3 issue for every resident, is traffic and mobility. And so that was not just city residents. Those were folks living in the perimeter of the region, folks that were living in different cities of different economic means. Top 3 was traffic and mobility. And we probed a little deeper, and we said, are you willing to make more investment in rail and in other forms of transit? We specifically used the word public investment. And again, shocking numbers, 75% said yes, absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about the success story here. And, you know, it by and large is really linked to our airport. We have an airport here that is second in the country after Atlanta. It is a busy airport that employs in the greater airport area about 225,000 people. And so the TexRail has really leveraged that opportunity. And we run 20 hours a day. We run 30-minute headways most of the day. And we run with these beautiful Stadler trains, first in the country, DMU, beautiful, beautiful trains. People love them. They get on. They're upholstered, heavy cushioning, bolstered seats. We are building a market here where what we have found is that although people are familiar with trains, the types of the service that we're offering here is something really a level above what you might find in other parts of the country. And a lot of that has to do, again, with the fact that we go places people want to go. So I mentioned the airport. The other end of the TexRail line is in downtown Fort Worth. And downtown Fort Worth is always busy. Matter of fact, this weekend, those tents are being put up right now on Main Street. And we'll have tens of thousands of people converge, actually well north of 100,000 over 4 days, coming down to that festival. Now, it's a rail, I get it, it's a rail conference. Just humor me for a moment. We're going to talk about buses. Why are we talking about buses? Well, Fort Worth, aside from TexRail, does not have, and aside from the TRE link between the two cities, Dallas and Fort Worth, we don't have a light rail system or a streetcar system. One of the first things I did in my role was we did a field trip with Mayor Matty Parker. We all got on a plane and went to Kansas City, and we experienced the Kansas City streetcar system. That excited Mayor Parker, excited the leadership in the city. We had business leaders, and the mayor formed a panel. And that panel last month recommended a streetcar system for Fort Worth. Well, not streetcar. We didn't use this word streetcar. It's urban rail. Yet to be defined. It could be streetcar. It could be, but something like light rail streetcar that connects our districts in Fort Worth. And we don't want to wait, right? We know that that's going to take a number of years to assemble the sort of the plans and the capital and to build out that network. And so we're starting with a bus system that emulates as much of the benefits of a streetcar or light rail system. And really proud of this. This was all done in-house by our team, really reimagining what the bus could be. So the first thing we did was we threw out the schedule, and we built a schedule with 15-minute frequencies, 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. We have an experience on board the bus where you'll be greeted with music. We have the mayor come on the loudspeaker once a trip and welcome people to Fort Worth. The operators have uniforms that have Western attire. Some of them even electively wear the cowboy hat. We have cowhide seats, cowhide print seats in the bus, so it's really a lot of fun. And what we're doing here is the ridership has grown substantially, where we're attracting people who would never otherwise try the bus. And our hope is that we can build the markets for rail. We can't wait, right? We can't wait 5 or 6 or 7 years to realize the benefits of rail. So we're trying to build that market today with the hope that when we introduce streetcar, we already have an established market. And these are the results. Now, not every bus is this crowded, but we do have buses that are this crowded. And keep in mind, this is Fort Worth, y'all, right? This is not Chicago or even Dallas. So for us to have transit buses in Fort Worth this crowded, I'm really, really proud of that. So we're looking at 3 to 4 corridors. The pitch that I'm making to our community is that Fort Worth is relatively compact. Our historic city center, our museum and cultural district, our historic Fort Worth stockyards, our near south side emerging district are a handful of miles apart. And so we're fortunate we may not have to build 92 miles of light rail or streetcar. We might be able to build something on the order of 10 or 15 miles of infrastructure to really connect the major destinations. So we're excited about that potential. Next step is really a development plan for this network, yet to be advertised. That will be an opportunity. We're going to be putting out an RFP on this, so stay tuned. And then the other project we're working on, I'll wrap up with this one, is that TexRail project right now between the airport and downtown. There's another 2 miles that we can take that line into the medical district. And so the medical district is home to 3 major hospitals with 40,000 jobs, and we're excited by this potential to really open up a new commutation market there, right? Whereas I mentioned earlier, the TexRail is not about commutation. Getting into this district would certainly serve that purpose. And the exciting part of this is you'd be able to go at some point all the way from Plano on the Silver Line all the way through the airport into downtown Fort Worth to the hospital district. So this idea of traveling across the entire Metroplex on a train is pretty exciting, and we're looking forward to that. I'll wrap here by saying we did our own mission, vision, values, and this is our new mission, trademark pending. We're excited by this idea in Fort Worth, right, that transit and rail in particular has a lot of support. We're energized by that. We think we're at the beginning of a new growth story for Fort Worth. And so I think if you look to Dallas historically and you look to Austin and places in Texas that have gone through a building boom, I do feel that Fort Worth is poised for that kind of growth in the near future. And so we're going to be ready for that. We're going to continue to invest in rail and put forward good ideas. And I'll leave you with the thought that there is reason for optimism. Again, remember, Tarrant County, Fort Worth is not exactly a liberal part of the country, right? Keep in mind, although I think some people like to think that our Texas cities are are more liberal. I would tell you that that's not the case in Fort Worth, and yet we have strong support for these kinds of investments, and that's heartening. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rich, and Fort Worth is very lucky to have you. And it connects to what Dee said, mobility over mode and connecting people to life, because that's what transit is really about. Our next speaker is another major leader, Paul Cristina, who serves as the Chief Executive Officer for the Denton County Transportation Authority. Now, he did come from the railroad industry in terms of he worked on public-private partnerships at BNSF, but he started as an officer in the Air Force, thank you for your service, and was the top 40, under 40 aviation professional. So for Mr. Allen, who's in the room with railway age, can you give a guy a break and give me a chance and come up with the top 100 under 100? Okay, so Paul is responsible for delivering public transportation services to the city of Denton, Highland Village, and Louisville within Denton County, one of the fastest growing counties in the United States. The agency is sharply focused on delivering safety, service, and ridership outcomes through a combination of customer-focused, data-driven decision-making, and bold vision. The agency's success is evidenced in part by its delivery of nearly 3.2 million transit trips in 2024, which broke an all-time ridership record and nearly tripled ridership in the last 3 years. So let's welcome Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be with you. The benefit of being the youngest, smallest sibling up here on the stage is you get to just say ditto, ditto, and keep your remarks really short. It is a privilege to be with you to lead the Denton County Transportation Authority. I'm joined by Mr. Austin Frith, who's our Vice President of Planning and Development, and it's always a privilege to share the stage with the two of you. The things that I'm going to point to are going to tie to themes that Dee and Rich both said, specifically around tying our services into the community, providing people with value by integrating into their lives, and really developing those senses of place. You're going to see those themes in these presentations. We at DCTA went through a significant transformation that really the headwinds or the winds of change began blowing in the mid-teens, leading to a legislative action and the board restructuring in 2019, and then really a wholesale revolution in the way that we deliver service, taking away a lot of fixed route bus service, putting in a large micro transit service, and I'll talk to you about the results of that here in a second. So like I said, DCTA, the youngest and smallest of the three agencies, established in 2002. We're a half-cent sales tax entity, so of our operating budget that you saw in Rich's presentation, about 2/3 of that is generated by a sales tax, and the rest comes from obviously our federal operating grants. Really the A-Train, we really are going to reference back to 2011, the start of the A-Train service as the place where we began to compare ridership by mode. So if you're familiar with Denton County, it's a big square just north and east of here, and you see our member cities highlighted there. City of Denton, City of Louisville, about 130,000 people each. City of Highland Village, about 15,000. When we redid our mission, it is to get people where they need and want to go for work, play, and life. So trying to connect the entirety of their livelihoods. But something really important in that mission statement is getting people where they want to go. Denton County, kind of like Tarrant County, like the city of Fort Worth, people have options. Median household income in large parts of our service area exceeds 6 figures. There's 2.5 cars in every driveway, so why would I ever use public transportation? It really creates a higher bar and a higher standard for us to meet if we want to generate services that are attractive to people and cause them to want to use transit, and so we relish that opportunity. The graph on the left shows you our ridership story from 2011, and you see in 2016 we peaked at about 3.1 million trips. That was also notably right before I-35E was expanded. And if you know about our A-Train, you know that you can see it from I-35E. When lane capacity was added to I-35E and travel times decreased, train ridership started to decline. And then we all know what happened with the COVID-19 pandemic, and we bottomed out at 1.1 million trips. But in that intervening time, 2019 to 2021 is when the DCTA board removed a lot of fixed route service that was underperforming in our member cities and implemented a microtransit service called GoZone. That GoZone service delivered 860,000 trips last year and really is fully almost a third of what we've delivered and really has been the backbone of our recovery. So what you can see is ridership overall grown really well, exceeding pre-pandemic numbers. And then if you look at ridership on the A train in the lower right, double-digit growth year over year for each of the last 4 years. Recognizing that the train is a valuable part of the community, that people are coming back to it. And if you've been stuck on a traffic jam on I-35E recently, anybody? The A train becomes a lot more attractive when it zips down the tracks and you're stuck on the bridge. So just going to put that there for today. So here you see ridership overall this year in fiscal 2025. You see that we're down about 8%, and so you say, uh-oh, that's a bad news story. But I'd say it's not if we're paying close attention, and I'll help us through that, because now we are in the business of optimizing our service offering. Kind of another theme that you heard in Dee's presentation. The system's been built out, we've got all the things we need, now we got to optimize. We've seen a hit on the bus ridership on the UNT service because we serve UNT, the fourth biggest college in the country. But if you look at the Connect ridership number, it's up 55% year over year. I'm going to talk about why that happened here in just a second. And then you look at the GoZone number and you see it's down just a little bit, and I'll talk about that here in a second too. So, how are we optimizing? DCTA is utilizing the data that we're gaining, and we'll get to the railroad part in a second. I know this is a rail conference, but people like data too, so we're going to talk about that. We've been using the data from our microtransit service to figure out where people are trying to go, and then made an investment last year in our bus network in that area that's in purple that says if you're trying to use microtransit inside this zone in the hours of 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. where we're running the bus every 20 minutes, Monday through Friday, the GoZone app, the microtransit app, is going to tell you to go and take the bus. So the ridership results that we've seen, 55% growth year over year, are telling us that if the bus is available and it runs frequently and it's on time and we make it attractive to folks, that they're going to use the service. That's really valuable to us because as we seek to optimize, the microtransit trip cost to DCTA is about 3 times the cost of what it is to take the bus. So if we want to continue to grow, we have to develop a healthy fixed route network, certainly in the city of Denton, but then our next iteration is going to be looking at the city of Louisville, where there is no fixed route today, to figure out how we can develop a fixed route service there. So reducing GoZone service in Denton, putting that GoZone service into Louisville and Highland Village allowed us to, while GoZone goes down just a little bit, we've been able to increase ridership overall on the system. We're gathering a full year's worth of data, and we expect another big change like that to happen in fiscal 2026. So how did we do that? I like graphs. Anybody else like graphs? Any engineers in the room? Okay. We're not going to walk through this graph, but the only thing that you got to know about this graph is that the orange line is cost per passenger on the GoZone service. The blue line is cost per passenger on the bus service. The x-axis is number of people on the network. And what this is telling us is what we all know intuitively. The more people you have on the bus, the cheaper it is to move people by bus. The breakthrough for DCTA and kind of what caused the revolution back in the mid-teens about doing things differently was that we've been able to figure out if we're trying to move, in this case, 46 people on the network, it's cheaper to move them by bus. And then when you make the buses run more frequently and then more people ride the bus, you continue to follow the curve to the right, the cost per passenger goes down, everybody wins. When I started at DCTA, this conversation about microtransit versus fixed route was in full force. It was very passionate, lots of conversation on both sides. But what we found is bringing it back to the math like this makes it make sense to people, and it's much harder to argue. It's about mobility, not modality, which is, I think, something that Dee points to. See how we didn't even talk about this, and we're all synced up, so that's really great. So how are we going to continue to optimize the network? So I talked a little bit before about looking at the GoZone data in Louisville. You see a heat map of hot spots in Louisville. Old bus routes in Louisville used to be big and circular. This is telling us there might be 4, 5, 6 north, south, east, west corridors that if we're running high frequency buses, facilitating easy transfers, maybe there's a core fixed route network there. So we're really excited about that. And now let's talk about the A train, because I promised. The APTA data and it lags a quarter behind. The APTA data tells us that DCTA was number 9 in the country for commuter rail ridership recovery as of the end of 2024. Now, I heard it said once, not by anybody on this stage, but that's the law of small numbers. Well, it's the only numbers that we got, so sorry. But again, no improvements to the A train, and people are coming back to it. And if you look at what's interesting about this is you look at all those things north of us on that list, those are all big, dense, urban areas. Denton County just broke 1 million people in the whole county. Now, there happens to be 80 people a day moving to Denton County, making it like the 4th fastest growing in the whole country. But this tells us that we believe the A train is worthy of investment and worthy of our attention in the future. And so what are we doing about that? Our board launched an ambitious vision last year on a program called Enhancing the Value of the A train. And what we're trying to do is improve the runtime on the existing corridor. We installed a PTC system a few years ago that caused us to lose some minutes on our runtime, so we want to get that back. Then we want to extend 2 miles into downtown Carrollton so that we can link up with that Silver Line train that Dee was telling you about, because then people who live in those cities where median household income is high, they're going to have an option to not drive to the airport and pay $50 a day at the terminal to park, or get on remote parking and ride for 45 minutes at the shuttle to get to the terminal, but they'll be able to get off the train on the Silver Line just like they can on Tex Rail, roll their suitcase into the terminal, and be on their way. We think that's going to be a game changer for our system, and then ultimately be able to get the train to 15-minute peak frequency so that we can connect more easily with the Green Line and the Silver Line. The idea in transit that the service has to be available, it has to be frequent, it has to be reliable, all that sort of stuff. We're seeing that play out in the data that we're generating from the investments that our board has made, and so we're really excited about taking the steps here as a result. Another thing we're trying to do with the A train, like I said before, integrate it into the communities that we serve. The A train was built back in 2011, and I looked through old files, and I saw D. Leggett's name on some of those files. I don't know how that, you were just 40 under 40. I don't know how that. She was 12 when she was working on the A train. That's what she said. But it was really built as a commuter train to help people get connected into downtown Dallas. Big parking lots. It served its purpose at a time. But the next gear for the A train is going to be transit-oriented development, integrating it into the fabric of the communities. And the first opportunity we have for that is at Old Town Louisville. DCTA owns 13 acres right next to the Old Town Station, which happens to be on corridor that is owned by Dallas Area Rapid Transit, and we're working really well with them to get through this. But what we foresee is a mixed-use development that has Class A office space, shopping, restaurants, maybe even a hotel conference center, somewhat on a smaller scale than what you have in Grapevine. If you've been to Old Town Louisville lately, you know that that's an overnight success. It's about 25 years in the making, is what their city council said. Ambitious vision that over time they just ticked off, and now Old Town Louisville is a place to be. So this will take that Old Town Louisville success and bring it to the east side of the tracks and be a catalyst for other development. As it happens, there's already 650 some odd multifamily units going in just to the east of this land that DCTA owns. And so be on the lookout for that here in the next couple of years as well. So with that, I think I'm done. Turn it back over to you.
Great. Very, very exciting stuff, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, well, a great group of leaders here. I want to thank them for their time, so let's give them a round of applause.